Hey 7th graders, welcome to your 8th video. In this video we're going to be talking about how to identify slope. So our goal today, our objective, is to identify slope using tables and graphs. So in this lesson we're going to be looking at tables, we're going to be looking at graphs. Standards are right here, make sure you copy them down. Let's go ahead, copy our vocab and start this lesson. Alright, for our vocab today we have one definition, and that's slope. It's the rate of change between any 2 points on a line. So again, you just heard rate of change. We did the lesson of rate of change in the previous one, and that's the change in y divided by the change in x. Well, if you continue to read the definition, it says the change in y divided by the change in x. What slope does is it tells us how steep a line is. So what I mean is, what the slope's going to do is it's going to tell us how steep this line is, how steep this line is, or how steep this line is. Now you can have lines that go up and you can have lines that go down, but slope really just tells us how steep the line is that we're looking at. So in this lesson we're going to be focusing on how to find slope in tables and graphs. In this example we're going to look at 4 examples for the problems that we're going to be doing. 2 with tables and 2 with graphs. So it says the table below shows the relationship between the number of seconds y it takes to hear thunder after a lightning strike and the miles x you are from the lightning. Graph the data and find the slope. Explain what the slope represents. So what we have to do is we have to graph this table and see what the slope of the line is going to look like, and then explain what that slope actually means by picking 2 points and finding the change in y and the change in x. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my graph. Now, you don't have to be perfect when you make a graph. You draw a line straight to the right, you draw a line straight up. We're graphing in the first quadrant because there's nothing that's in the negatives. Miles, since it says x, that's on the bottom. So miles is on the x line because it tells us that's on the x. And seconds is on the y line because it tells us it's on the y. So we're going to start with 0 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to do seconds on the y line. So I know seconds is my y line, and I'm going to go by 5s. And so I'm going to say, okay, well here's 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. And when I make my marks, I try to keep them equal distance apart. That's what you want to try to do. So now we're going to graph it. 0, 0, that goes right here. 1, 5, go up 1, or go right 1, go up 5. 2, 10, go right 2, go up 10, put a mark. 3, 15, go over 3, go up 15. It's actually a little bit lower. There we go. 420. Get a little bit nicer here. Just trying to stay out of the way for a quick second. 420 and 525. So, looking at this, I put my dots where each one of the points goes. And if I connect the dots, I can see that they make a straight line for the most part. Now I didn't use a ruler, so it is a little bit crooked, and I didn't make my distance equal distance apart. I tried to make it best I could. So we see we have a straight line. Well, this is a proportional relationship because it goes through the origin, makes a straight line, but that's not what the question asked us. The question asked us to find the slope. Well, we learned how to find slope in a graph before by figuring out the rise and figuring out the run. Well, in this case, what we know is that slope is equal to the change in y divided by the change in x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 2 points on the graph, and I'm going to figure out the slope in those 2 points, and it's still going to be the same for all the rest of the points. So let's say I picked this point right here, which I know that that point represents 5, 25. And let's say I pick this point here, which is 2 and 10. So I'm going to pick these 2 points right here. So I'm picking point 1, point 2. Now, in order to do this method, what we have to do is we have to figure out which one's the x and which one's the y. Well, when looking at a coordinate pair, the first letter is an x and the second letter is a y. So I labeled mine x's and y's. Now what you want to do is you want to find the change in y. So I'm going to take the big number minus the small number here. This y, which is 25, minus 10. 25 minus 10 is equal to 15. So I found that my change in y is 15 spaces. And if I looked over here, I could go up 15. 10 plus 15 is 25. So this is my 15 spaces of rise. And now I'm going to find my change of run. So I'm going to take my x's and subtract them. I'm going to take this same x and subtract that x. 5 minus 2 equals 3. So in this case, I know that I'm going to go from 2 over to 5. And that's a change of 3. Well, if we do the method that we learned in the previous lesson, we drew a line up, we drew a line across to the next point that we want to go to, we still get the same numbers if we use the coordinates and subtract them. So we actually have the ability to take our information and subtract whatever we want from it. As long as they all have the same slope, we can just say, okay, if I had 25 minus 10, that's 15. I had 5 minus 2, that's 3. So my slope is 15 over 3. Well, if I change that to unit rate by dividing the top and bottom by 3, I get 15 divided by 3 is 5. And 3 divided by 3 is 1. Well, I know that the y is seconds. And I know the x is miles. So what this means is that for every 5 seconds after a lightning strike, the storm is an additional mile away. So what I did here was I actually did what it told me to do. They asked us to explain what the slope means. And what this slope tells us is it says for every 5 seconds after we see lightning until we hear thunder, the storm is an additional mile away. So this is just using a real-life example that we took table, we found the slope, and then we explain what that slope means. Let's do another one. In our second example, we're going to do another word problem that has a table. We're going to make a graph, and we're going to determine the slope. So this problem says the table below shows the relationship between the number of hours Carlos works and the amount of money he earns. First step, graph the data. Second step, find the slope of the line. Third step, explain what that slope actually represents. So we have 3 things we're doing in this. We're going to do each one individually. So first step, graph the data. Alright, this doesn't have X or Y, but I see hours, and if hours isn't labeled since it deals with time, it's automatically my X value, which means the amount of money he earns is my Y. So I'm going to mark hours, and I'm going to put a money sign on this side that says that's what he's got. Now, it goes 45, 90, 135, and it's 369, so I'm going to put 369 here. 3, 6, 9, and I'm going to count by, what should I count by? I'm going to count by 30. So I have 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. Alright, so I decided to count by 30s to make my graph. So first number is 3 and 45. So 3 over, 45 up, which is in between 30 and 60, right in the middle. 6 and 90, well I can go right to 90. Here's 6. And 9 and 135, which is in between 120 and 150. Alright, so here is my graph. So, looking at this, for the most part, I get a straight line again, and it goes through the origin. So, since I'm getting pretty much a straight line, and it goes through the origin, I know it's proportional, but that's not what the question asked me. The question asked me to find the slope. And remember that slope is equal to the change in y over the change in x. And you're going to hear me say that over and over and over again, even in rate of change. Change in y, change in x. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick 2 points on this line. It doesn't matter what 2 points, since they're all on the same line. We can pick any ones. I'm going to go ahead and pick this point here and this point here. So the coordinates of that is 9, 135, and the other one has coordinates of 6 and 90. And we're actually going to use the problem kind of like the way we did the last one. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the slope, which is equal to the change in y. So 135, because this is the y value, minus 90, because that's the other y value. So 135 minus 90, and that's going to go on top. So that is equal to 45. And then I'm going to take my x's and figure out the change in those. So 9 minus 6 is equal to 3. So what this tells me is that on average, Carlos is making $45 in 3 hours. Let's go ahead and change this to unit rate by dividing by 3 on bottom, dividing by 3 on top. 45 divided by 3 is 15. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So our slope tells us that Carlos makes $15 an hour. And that's what it really is explaining to us, that Carlos makes $15 an hour. And I could always check too if I go up 15 from 90. So 105 and I go over 1, I would be there. Or if I went up 45 from 90, so 90 plus 45, and I go over 3, I'd be right back to where I was. So 45 over 3 or 15 over 1, I'll still be right back on that line. So again, the slope tells us how steep that line is. We can either do the 15 up, 1 over, or we can do the 45 up and 3 over, and we'll be right back on that line. This is the unit rate. It's a unit rate because remember the denominator is 1. And we learned in the very first lesson to get to a unit rate, all we do is divide top and bottom by bottom number. 2 more problems and we're done for the day already. In our third example, we're actually looking at a graph that's already done for us, and we have a story problem. So let's go ahead and read that story problem, see if we can't figure out what the answer is going to be for this problem. So here it says Ronaldo opened a savings account. Each week he deposits $300. Draw a graph of the account balance versus time. So here we already got the graph drawn. Find the numeric value of slope and interpret it in words. So what we need to do is we need to find the numeric value of slope and interpret what does that actually mean. So when looking at this, I can see that in week 2 he had $600, and week 4 he had $1,200. So I could figure out the slope by figuring out how much I rise. So if I rise from 600 to 1,200, I rose 600. And how much I run? Well, I went 2 to 4, so that's 2. So 600 divided by 2 is equal to, well, if I divide both of those by 2, I get 300 over 1. So what this is telling us is that our slope was actually given to us in the problem. his account balance is rising at a rate of $300 a week. So, in this problem, the slope of the line is the rate at which the account balance rises. So in this problem, our slope represents how much his account balance is rising over time. So this is our answer to the problem. It represents how much his account balance is rising. One more problem and done. Alright, for our very last problem, I'm not going to have the graph on here ready for you. We're going to actually make the graph the last thing we're doing. So it says Nina drains a 20-gallon fish tank at a rate of 0.5 gallons per minute, or half a gallon per minute. Draw the graph of the water in the aquarium over time and find the numeric value of slope and interpret it in words. So we're actually going to draw a graph of this information and we're going to interpret what it means numerically as well as in words. So first thing, let's go ahead and make our graph. Now we see per minute, so minutes is my time. And we have at a rate of half a gallon per minute. We have gallons on the side. And we know that the highest the tank goes is 20 gallons. And I'm going to put that this is 40 minutes all the way over here. So I'm going to count by tens. Tens seem good. Or fives. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Nope. 5s are not a good number to pick. So I'm going to count by tens. So 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and at the very end we're going to have 40 minutes on our clock. Alright, and for this I'm going to count by fives. So 5 gallons, 10 gallons, 15 gallons, and 20 gallons. So we're going to graph the information of how much water is in the tank in so many minutes. So I know that it drops at a rate of half a gallon per minute. So it takes 2 minutes to go 1 gallon. Well, if it's 2 minutes for 1 gallon, 2 times 5 is 10 minutes for 5 gallons. Okay, well if it's 10 minutes for 5 gallons, it would be 20 minutes for 10 gallons. Whoop, oh, I'm doing it the wrong way. Sorry, relay my last. So we know that the tank water level is going down. We know that at the start, there's 20 gallons. So go ahead and put a dot at 20 gallons. So forgive me for what I was doing. We're going to start at 20 gallons. That's how much water is in the tank. We also know that the rate is going down at half a gallon per minute. So if it's half a gallon in 1 minute, it's 1 whole gallon in 2 minutes. Okay, so if I can do 1 gallon in 2 minutes, 2 times 5 would be 10. And the reason why I asked for 5 is because I made my count by 5. So it takes 10 minutes to drop 5 gallons. So in 10 minutes, the amount of water that would be in the tank would be 15 gallons. Okay. Well, if it's 10 minutes for 5 gallons and 20 minutes, there'd be 10 gallons left. In 30 minutes, there'd be 5 gallons left. And in 40 minutes, there'd be 0 gallons left. If we graph that, we can see that eventually the water level is completely gone. And we know that the graph should be going down because the water is getting poured out of the aquarium. It's getting drained, so the water level should be going down. So that's why we had to start at 20, because they told us what amount we start at. Now, it says, okay, well, we drew the graph, find the numeric value of slope. Well, they kind of give us that slope. They told us what's actually happening. They told us that our graph is going to go down 0.5 gallons per minute. And we could actually see that here, that it went down 5 gallons over 10 minutes. Might have put minus. So it went down 5 gallons in 10 minutes. Well, if we divide by 10, that means that our graph is going half a gallon in 1 minute. So our rate of change means that the slope at which the water level is draining. So this right here represents how the water level is changing in the aquarium. So our slope represents the water draining. So all you gotta do in this lesson is be able to find slope and then tell me what the slope is meaning in this situation. So our slope in this situation means that the water level is going down, and the previous one talked about bank account balance going up. So this slope talks about water level going down. You guys did awesome. Hopefully you guys are glad this was a quick lesson. We're going to be practicing them in class. If you have any questions, please by all means ask your questions. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you smash that notification bell with your elbow or fist, and see you again on the next video.